Hi everyone! Today I'm going to show you how to paint these bright red rose using Prismacolor watercolor pencils. We'll build the rose in two layers, so it looks richer, deeper and more vibrant in the end. And before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future tutorials. All the materials I'm using today, plus a free pencil sketch, are linked in the description below. For this tutorial, I'm working on thick, smooth watercolor paper, hot press. You also need a brush, a dark water, and a paper towel to control excess water and pigment. As for colors today, I'm using goldenrod, dark green, crimson red, dark umber, spring green, just a tiny bit. I'll start with crimson red, lightly outlining the rose bud and defining the main shapes. Then I do the same with dark green for the leaves and the stem. At this stage, I'm applying a light first layer. I want to keep it soft and airy. We'll build intensity later. To make the rose feel more natural, I mix in a touch of yellow, blending it gently into both the green areas and part of the bud. Now comes the fun part, activating the watercolor pencils with water. I start with the rosebud, carefully softening the pencil marks with a damp brush. Then I activate the leaves and the stem the same way. At this point, everything needs to dry completely before we move on to the second layer. Once the paper is fully dry, I go back and with the pencils. I add deeper reds to the shadow areas of the rose, while intentionally leaving lighter sections untouched. This contrast is what gives the rose volume and dimension. Near the base of the bud, I introduce a hint of green and yellow to keep it organic. The left side of the rose is slightly darker, so I push the shadows there a bit more. I repeat the same idea on the leaves and stems. Darker shadows, lighter highlights. And we do exactly the same thing for the second bat. Now I activate the second layer with water. I always start with the lighter areas first, then gently blend into the darker, more saturated parts. This helps preserve highlights and keep the rose looking fresh. If the paint ever spreads too much, you can simply lift it with a dry paper towel. You can also pull a layer of green into the rosebud with soft strokes. It adds a beautiful natural watercolor effect. In this composition, I decided not to add thorns. Let's imagine they're there somewhere. It keeps the rose feeling softer and more delicate. To add highlights, I use a slightly damp brush and gently lift pigment from selected areas. This is a simple but very effective watercolor technique. And here we have it, a bright, vibrant and realistic rose painted with watercolor pencils. I really hope this tutorial was helpful and interesting for you. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more watercolor pencil tutorials. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. See you next time.